Well, we finished our Easter series last week with celebrating Easter. I hope that was an impactful series for you. It was impactful for me to study it and put it together. I have been deeply convicted that we often don't live our lives in light of the resurrection, that Easter's done, Sunday's done, we kind of get back to life. But it is to be a new lens that you see all of life through. And I think it dovetails quite well with the book of Exodus, which we are returning to today. We went through Exodus 1 to 18 before the Lent season, and now we're coming back into chapter 19. And really, this Easter series kind of gives us the climax or the point to the whole biblical story for what Exodus was pointing us to. And so we kind of have this little inside information now as post-resurrected people to understand what was going on through human history, through human story in Exodus. And so hopefully you'll see how these dovetail over time. But in Exodus, we are reminded a couple things, these first 18 chapters, that this account of Israel's history was the most celebrated and repeated and remembered part of their history. Throughout all of Israel's history, they have told this story over and over again about the Exodus and what God did. What we're supposed to remember is this pattern, and we're living it today, a pattern that God leads out, God leads through, and God leads into. Out, through, and in. We see that God led Israel out of slavery under the power of Pharaoh. He's leading them through the wilderness, and later on in the biblical narrative, they are led into a promised land of fruitfulness. Some of the key things that we need to be reminded of that we've kind of touched on over those 18 chapters. Number one, this is God's story. I can't pound that into our heads enough because we're so inclined to make this story about me. All of us, this sinful nature that we're still battling, this flesh in us, is always trying to turn this story into me and about me and for my glory and my benefit. This is God's story. As we already sung, as I've already said, He hears. Do you have any idea how significant that is? That the God of the universe, we just saw incredible pictures with Artemis 2 and all that, the God that spoke that into being, He hears you. He is so close to you that He listens to you. He's so close to you and such a compassionate and soft-hearted God that He actually is moved by the prayers of His people. And then He's drawn to respond. And in this narrative, we see that with Israel, that God hears them. He's moved by their plight, and He's convicted to act on their behalf, and even for His own name's sake. And as a result, He has conquered this, what I've been calling this anti-God movement, symbolized by Pharaoh. And He has freed His people. In the midst of that, He has called a deliverer, Moses, to advocate for and intercede for and teach and guide this people towards the kind of people they are meant to be. So Moses has brought them through the desert. They're still there. And what God is doing here is teaching them to trust Him and obey Him. God brings us to the points of sheer desperation at times so that we come to the end of our own resources and see then who He is and that He is worthy of our trust. Easter last week was the climax of that story. Jesus coming to be truly human for us, demonstrating what humanity is meant to be and what we are meant to do. He did for us what we could not do for ourselves, and in doing so, resurrecting us to what it looks like to be a true man and a true woman in this world. Now in Exodus 19, we're going to see in historical accounts of how God is making that happen. God does that through a covenant. He does it through claiming a people for Himself, acting on their own behalf, and fulfilling His promises that He has made to them to restore them to what He created them to be. And in doing so, He gives us a job to do. We talked about that in this Easter series as well, that it's just not about being saved and sitting around and waiting for heaven to happen. That actually to be truly human is to rule creation, is to bring about beauty and life and light in God's good creation. That's what we're supposed to do. This last week, I hosted what we call a ministerial here on Thursday. So what that is the denomination that we belong to, the series of us pastors get together 2-3 times a year. This particular meeting I hosted here on Thursday. As we get together, we talk about our various ministries and what's going on in the denomination. We share prayer requests about our families, and we just enjoy praying together or go for lunch together. And some of the great things about the denomination that we're a part of is most of the churches are exceptionally healthy. We're able to share about the leadership things that are going on and the new lives that are being changed, the baptisms that are going on, and just the joy of abundance. But one thing that comes up consistently, too, is some of the struggles in ministry, the struggles in churches. And one of the struggles that really came out in a couple of conversations that I was having is among the joy-filled, faithful people that are attending our churches is these other few that just, regardless of the opportunities presented before them, will not follow. People who've been sitting in pews and chairs like this for years, really not entering into the life that God has called them to. And it reminded me that this is a choice. That actually, we're going to see later in this passage, it's actually very few that follow through. And so with some of us, we're kind of sitting back and lamenting a little bit, sharing our joys, but lamenting also the many, many people sitting in our churches this morning who really aren't following through with what they say they believe. And I wonder if it kind of fits into this story of Exodus that, we are in this wilderness time. So if we're kind of putting ourselves in the Exodus story, we've come out of slavery by faith in Christ. I hope you've done that. And if you have, it's not like we've jumped into the promised land. We're still walking through this desert wilderness place. That God is taking us through these hard times to bring us to the end of our resources and actually trust Him and look to Him and follow Him. But in this wilderness time, I'm finding in the story of Israel, but also in our churches, that so many people are falling victim to other false narratives while walking through this wilderness time. We see that with Israel many times. So in the first 12 chapters of Exodus, God sends Moses in. They're delivered out of the power of Pharaoh, and they enter into the desert after this incredible thing called the Passover. It's interesting, within just a few days, those same people who saw all these miraculous things, do you know what they say to God? Why are we here? Why did you bring us out into the... Did you bring us here to starve us to death? Did you bring us out of slavery, out of Egypt, to die here in the desert? In another narrative, it's like, did you bring us out here to get so thirsty that we're going to die with our thirst? Like, do you even care about us? God, do you realize that it would be better to go back into Egypt? Do you realize, like, just in a couple of days, they gave into false narratives during a wilderness time? Like, what are you doing? Egypt is better. How is that any different than how we live?